Good morning, folks. Governance, super exciting topic. Yeah? So today I'd like to share what am I seeing in enterprise adoption, what is the friction, the overall framing of how we should think about when we get into how do I accelerate the adoption within an enterprise. And I'll give a sneak peek at some of the solutions that we have put in place already. We've all seen technology evolve and various inflection points. How many of you still remember mobile devices were not allowed into the enterprise? You could not bring your own device into the enterprise and connect it to your enterprise systems. Right? So think of what it took to get over that hump, and we are an even bigger question mark at this point in AI. But there are already implementations and solutions on the way that will make it possible to deploy agents with autonomy in your production environment in an enterprise. As you look at these technologies, there's a lot of airtime spent on what's the technology, what am I doing here with this technology, and what will it disrupt. Then comes the wave of what can I actually build with it? How can I make use of it? The productization part of it. But then most people don't think about what happens on a day two once I deploy. How do I operate it? How do I manage this solution? Right? So finding that sweet spot across all of these, the technology, the product, and operations, is how you'll increase adoption of the technology. What am I seeing in the enterprise today? Technology moves at a rapid pace, but the organizations adopt it and move slowly because you're dealing with people, existing processes, and then the products themselves as they're maturing through this cycle. Few years ago, let's just say 3-4 years ago, enterprise customers used to talk about, prove to me that AI works. Like, does it really deliver what it needs to deliver? And then very quickly, it turned into, okay, help me understand how to use it and how to build a product with this. And now, as I'm talking to customers and senior leaders, it's really about help me manage this scale. I know I'm going to deploy it, and I'm going to deploy it at scale. How do I actually manage it in my operations? What I'm seeing is really in an enterprise today, the two bookends of adoption. There are products out there that help you with individual productivity. I find the information quickly. I can take actions on it for my own personal use, be it on the personal side or on the enterprise side. And then on the other extreme, you have very high code agents that are built by the CIO organization, CTO organization, that are tested, going through the proper eval cycles, security scans, everything, and then they're deploying it for their organizational use. That's great, right? So you're seeing the employee productivity driven by personal productivity, and you're seeing the organization driving new investments so that they're actually able to leverage AI for the benefit of the organization. There's a wide swath of middle where we are yet to unlock for a variety of reasons. So I'll touch on some of those and what's happening. As we look ahead, what are we aiming for? Right? So this is one framing I use as we build products, as we build experiences. Consider an agent as an intern. They come into your organization, you trust them with a few things, not all of them. You don't give them full access. But at the same time, you do expect them to do certain things. At the end of the day, a great intern would tell you what they delivered, what they needed help with, that's essentially your human in the loop, and what they could not solve, that's your error analysis. Right? So, and then on the other side, the people that are managing either the interns or the agents, they need to have the ability to give feedback, help the intern, or in this case the agent, improve on the things that it required human in the loop. Every human in the loop interaction is an opportunity to tap into that residual knowledge and improve the automation for the next cycle. So, and then similar thing on the error analysis. Where did it fail and how can I improve it for the next cycle? So you can imagine the evolution of, as agents come in, going that expertise very rapidly if you have built in those feedback loops within your organization. If you take a step further, we are envisioning the state, and it's already happening, where every task, every employee has an army of agents, whether it is my personal agent or an agent that is just out there doing the task that I would otherwise do, or maybe when I need to ask my specialist coworker, there is an agent that is kind of solving some of those tasks. To get there, we do need to solve certain governance layers. I talked about the bookends of personal agent and the deeper workflow agents. These work today very well because when a user is interacting with these agents, it's really taking on the user's identity. Agent is acting on behalf of the user. Your enterprise is already set up to solve for those. A user identity kind of permeates through and it is wired into everything that you can access. You can access a certain system, you cannot access a certain system. So when an agent accesses that data, underlying data, it's already using the user's identity and it either gets it or does not get it. So that's relatively straightforward and that's already in place. But now the challenge is I build an agent. I share it with my colleague. If I'm accessing certain data that I have access to but my colleague does not, how do we handle that? It's easy to say just deny the access and then you kind of have a broken agent that my colleague cannot actually use. Right? Even difficult or tricky situation is I have lower access but my colleague has higher access. What if I give him an agent to update the salary information? Right? So what if he has the additional access and then he can actually update? Right? So you want to work through all of those security scenarios on when agency difference happens when you're sharing these agents. On the other side, when multiple agents are deployed across different departments, we have a contract generating agent that looks at the pricing schemes, what the customer is eligible for, what discounts they're eligible for, and then generates that. And then you have a sales team that is looking at an account, interacting with end customer. It will be great if these two agents can orchestrate and generate the perfect contract so that there is fewer handoffs between humans in the organizational chain. So when you're going into these multi-agent orchestration scenarios across silos, what data gets exposed, what functionality gets exposed, and what do you allow each others to do, that's where some of these challenges come into play, and we are actively solving those. Now, so I touched on a few of these things. I'll distill that to going from what is happening in the enterprise today to what are the true distilled requirements around governance. We are already seeing an enterprise is dealing with multiple large language models in their deployments. And different agents do different things, different functionality, and they use different LLMs. And then under the covers, you have a variety of MCPs, API endpoints, and the CLIs. How do I manage and handle all of this in a consistent and uniform way? It comes down to visibility, control, and security. These are the questions the CIOs and the chief security officers are asking. How do I see what's happening? Do I have visibility to everything that's going on? I spent a lot of time solving for shadow IT. Now, essentially, this is shadow AI. How do I know an employee is not simply downloading a skill that they like on the internet and then using it internally? And what is it accessing? So those are the questions that we're trying to solve. And then on the control, how can I actually manage it? How can I restrict to least agency? I can allow an agent to check my vacation balance. I can maybe even accept the risk that I can update the vacation balance, but I don't want to allow an autonomous agent to update the salary information. So understanding the task and understanding the data restrictions, and then how do I actually manage that with fine-grained control? These are things that customers are asking us. The next thing is security. How can I be proactive at reducing this risk? Can I detect malicious activity? Yes, it need not be an agent that went rogue. It used to be the case when something went wrong, people would blame it on an intern. Now people blame it on an agent. Yeah? But ultimately, who is actually accountable for it? So there's always these norms in an organization where you do bad stuff, you get fired. But with an agent, can you fire an agent? Like, who's actually accountable for it in an organization? And so it is these understanding the existing process and building both the technology, the process, and the people mindset into delivering these agents to fully unlock Their autonomy is what we're trying to solve for. Okay? So that's the setup of the problem statement. How are we at Google Cloud thinking about it? So I'll start with a few things. At a big picture level, we have a Gemini Enterprise agent platform where you can build low-code, no-code agents. Governance is a huge foundation building block for us. We have a heavy investment across a variety of those building blocks. We look at these as a composable building blocks that need to come together to deliver governance for an enterprise. A lot of these elements do translate into a consumer and the Internet of the agents too, but I'm going to talk more about what I'm seeing in the enterprise side. Everything starts with identity. So I talked about a user identity being your control point. In the new world, we are minting agent identity. So every agent that is operating in an enterprise has its own identity. What that means is your existing enterprise processes on identity and access management, IAM process, they work seamlessly with the agent. You can now identify an agent. You can pull a kill switch if you need to. You manage access controls through your existing IAM solutions. So having an identity for an agent, explicit identity, helps you seamlessly fit into current process. Now from there, you want to be able to register every agent. Just like every employee has an ID in your LDAP directory. That enables you to understand what controls they have, what accesses they have, and what permissions they have. Obviously, you want to be able to observe the agent, not just statically when it is minted, but also when it is in runtime. Now, once you have that, you can expose that agent through your front end. I make it accessible through a variety of surfaces, whether it's your GChat, Slack, any of these interfaces. And on the back end, it can connect it to any of your data sources. Again, it's about the identity, having the ability to access those data sources. The new things, it is not just static. Just like a user, once they onboard into an organization, you generally have their set permissions. Whereas here, you're trying to unlock the difference between context-aware, task-aware permissions. The example I used earlier, which is about checking my vacation balance, is very different from doing a write operation on my salary database. So you want the ability to monitor for what is the actual task that is happening now, and have the ability to do runtime permission checking when the task is being accomplished. So we have an agent gateway that does that, coupled with IAM, identity, and access authorization through that process. So that's our overall stack. Again, I can go into a lot of details on each of the components. I'll skip through these things. So maybe I'll touch on some of these things. So as you work at scale on these things, it cannot be a static configuration for you set it once and forget. You have to have this ongoing runtime monitoring, both live as well as audit post hoc. So we have the technology called Model Armor that is actually doing non-deterministic analysis of enterprise policies. You have the IAM policies that are set once, but then you have the content policies which says check for prompt injection, verify for any PII leakage, and what is being exfilled out of the model or your data. As the runtime is happening, you also want some offline checks to see where is this some anomaly activity going on. Okay. Lot of it rides on observability. Observability evaluates whether you can do it live or offline, so you need to be able to do these things. And lastly, the existing mechanisms of API security plays a huge role. A lot of companies, and almost every company, has already solved this problem at the API layer. When they went from internal databases to enabling a mobile device or enabling a consumer-facing app, they already solved by tying an identity into what data is available to this user. So we use those underlying primitives of API layer, solution layer, and the content layer security checks to solve for this for different scenarios. To net it out, use your existing infrastructure, but there are some special sauce on top of that you need to incorporate to drive agentic solutions. And with that, I'll say investing in governance will actually help you accelerate as you go through this agentic journey. Thank you.